Bow, bow, bow. Get me.
You've just seen it. Grainy CCTV footage from a business park in Birmingham. The camera captures a van pulling up in the dead of night. Seconds later, masked figures jump out. In under 3 minutes, they've torn through steel shutters, smashed their way in, and vanished with tens of thousands in electronics. No alarms, no hesitation, no trace. But this was no one-off job. Across the West Midlands, a shadowy crew was hitting businesses with military precision. Dozens of burglaries, from logistics warehouses to car dealerships, all targeted with chilling efficiency. Over £2.6 million stolen. These weren't reckless street criminals. They were specialists, ex-cons, career burglars, and logistics-savvy operators who moved under the radar for nearly 2 years. But now, that spree is over. Thanks to a sprawling investigation by West Midlands Police and Interforce cooperation, the gang has finally been dismantled. Their faces are no longer hidden behind balaclavas. They are mugshots in a case file. But how did they operate so smoothly for so long? Who led them? And what finally brought them down? Let's go back into the start of one of the most audacious commercial burglary operations in modern UK history. The first break-in didn't raise many eyebrows. In early 2022, a warehouse in Dudley reported a burglary. CCTV showed 4 masked men forcing entry around 3:12 a.m. They were fast, calm, and out in minutes with nearly £80,000 worth of electronics. Police filed the case, dusted for prints, but no solid leads emerged. Another after-hours smash and grab, nothing new. But within weeks, it happened again, then again. Wolverhampton, Walsall, Coventry. The targets kept changing, but the methods stayed the same. Small to mid-size industrial estates. Quiet hours between 2 and 5 a.m. Zero confrontation. No fingerprints, alarms often disabled or bypassed. It was like watching ghosts move through bricks. Detectives began noticing the pattern. Entry through back doors or roof hatches, motion sensors covered with spray, CCTV lines cut with wire clippers. Even when alarms triggered, the gang was gone before patrols could respond. They struck businesses across sectors. Tech suppliers, vehicle storage units, vape wholesalers, car part importers. Every job was under 10 minutes, but the value of goods taken ranged from £20,000 to £250,000. What baffled detectives most was the logistics. This wasn't opportunistic theft, it was orchestrated. Tools were chosen for specific entry points. Vans were rented days in advance under fake names. Routes avoided ANPR cameras. Some of the stolen goods were being moved out of the UK within 48 hours. The media dubbed them the Silent Night Crew. Local business owners were rattled. Some hired overnight security, others installed reinforced shutters or panic alarms. But it didn't matter, the gang kept adjusting. They had bolt cutters strong enough to bite through industrial locks, and inside info that suggested more than just observation, possibly informants or insiders. By the end of 2022, over 40 commercial burglaries were linked by West Midlands Police to what they now officially called a patterned, mobile, organized burglary network. The stolen goods totaled over £2.6 million, and not a single suspect had been identified. Behind the scenes, a specialist task force was forming. Officers from multiple departments, burglary squads, cyber intelligence, tactical response, were quietly assigned to a dedicated unit, Operation Halo. The mission? Unmask the men behind the balaclavas, dismantle the crew, and stop the hemorrhaging of millions from West Midlands businesses. But the Silent Night Crew were already evolving and getting more brazen. In late December, they hit 3 sites in one night: a tire importer in Birmingham, a vape distributor in Smethwick, and a car tuning company in Solihull, all within a 4-hour window. They used cloned plates, jammed tracking signals, and dumped one of their vans in a canal before sunrise. One officer remarked in frustration, "They plan these jobs like bank robbers." That wasn't far from the truth. What no one yet realized was that several of these men were already known to police. career criminals with long histories in burglary and fencing operations. Some had served time, others had slipped through the cracks of probation, and one of them, the suspected ringleader, was someone the police had tangled with before. But to catch him this time, they'd need more than CCTV. They needed to infiltrate the network. Operation Halo officially launched in January 2023. Quietly, no press, no leaks, just a small, focused unit working from an off-site building in Birmingham with one objective: identify and dismantle the gang responsible for the £2.6 million crime spree. Leading the team was Detective Inspector Sarah Holloway, a veteran in organized crime investigations. She'd spent years chasing armed robbers and vehicle theft rings across the Midlands. But this was different. These guys weren't thrill seekers, they were professionals, she told colleagues during the first briefing. They're careful, strategic, which makes them vulnerable to mistakes. And that's exactly what she was betting on. The team began re-watching hours of CCTV footage from different crime scenes. A pattern began to emerge: always two vehicles. One, a decoy, usually a small hatchback used for scouting. The second, a high-roof van for transporting goods. The crew rotated drivers, changed license plates, wore the same type of gloves and boots to avoid traceable prints. But humans are creatures of habit, and eventually even professionals slip up. One van, a white Ford Transit, used in a heist in Coventry, had a broken rear light. When the footage was enhanced, it showed the same damage on another job in West Bromwich. D.I. Holloway's team cross-referenced every transit van rental in the region. They found a fake ID used multiple times: Jason Vickers. It was a dead lead at first, but then came the breakthrough. In April 2023, a sharp-eyed constable flagged a routine stop of a man near Wolverhampton. He was driving a car that had been seen circling an industrial estate 2 nights before a major burglary. The man gave his name as Tommy Wade. Clean record. But he was nervous. Too nervous. When police searched the vehicle, they found high-powered bolt cutters, a balaclava, and a burner phone. That phone became the linchpin of the investigation. The device had been used to contact 7 other phones in the past 2 weeks, all prepaid, all registered under false names. But cyber analysts at Operation Halo worked fast. By triangulating signals and pulling CCTV near cell towers, they managed to match several of those numbers to individuals. Within 2 weeks, they had names. Real names. Lee Morrison, Jordan Fields, Callum Rees, and at the top of the list, Shane Doyle. Doyle had a history. He'd served time for burglary and fencing high-end electronics. He was smart, kept a low profile, and had ties to gangs in both Birmingham and Manchester. But he'd been quiet since his release in 2020. No new charges, no surveillance. Now it looked like he'd simply gone underground and taken a few trusted associates with him. The burner phone also led investigators to a small lockup unit in Tipton. When police raided it, they found dozens of boxes stacked like a warehouse. Inside, new sealed electronics, laptops, phones, dashcams, car diagnostics gear, all linked to the previous burglaries. They'd found the stash house. For Holloway's team, this was gold, but they weren't ready to move in on arrests. Not yet. They wanted everything, and the whole crew, the operation, the logistics, and for that, they needed someone on the inside. The thing about professional gangs is they rarely crumble from outside pressure. It's the inside that gives way, usually through ego, greed, or fear. For the Silent Night crew, it was all three. After identifying Shane Doyle as the likely ringleader and confirming the lockup in Tipton, Operation Halo focused on monitoring the wider crew. They started with the burner phones. Call data showed regular pings around certain pubs, gyms, and betting shops, places frequented by mid-level criminals trying to stay low-key. One number, registered to Gary Miles, real name Jordan Fields, stood out. Unlike Doyle, Fields wasn't as disciplined. He drank heavily, made flashy purchases, and posted vague but incriminating content on encrypted messaging apps. A screenshot showed him holding a wad of cash, captioned with "early retirement," in a WhatsApp group. Another image traced to Snapchat showed a storage unit door in the background, identical to the Tipton lockup. That was the opening. Undercover officers began surveillance on Fields. For weeks, they tracked his routines, his visits to a particular pub in Smethwick, a girlfriend's flat in Handsworth, and regular meetups with another member, Callum Rees, outside a boxing gym. Then came the slip. Late one night, Fields left the pub visibly drunk and got into his car. Officers didn't intervene at first until he ran a red light. That gave them cause. He was pulled over, arrested for drink driving, and his phone was seized during booking. He didn't crack straight away, but he was worried. He was pulled over, arrested for drink driving, and his phone was seized during booking. He didn't crack straight away, but he was worried. Forensics extracted messages from his encrypted phone, including plans for an upcoming job in Telford. Even more telling was a list of code names with locations next to them. These were drop points, believed to be where stolen goods were temporarily stored before being moved out of the region. One entry read, Fox Weds, Unit 9/Rugby/Tools plus Tech. That was enough. D.I. Holloway ordered covert surveillance on Unit 9. Over the next 3 days, detectives saw 3 men enter and exit. One of them was confirmed as Shane Doyle. Another was Morrison. All moved carefully, scanning for tails using walkie-talkies. But Fields had done more than slip up. He'd marked himself as a liability. After his release, he was approached by officers again, this time with pressure, CCTV stills, data logs, burner phone records, and a potential 10-year sentence if he didn't cooperate. It worked. He turned informant, the first crack in the Silent Night crew's armor. Over the next 2 weeks, Fields provided critical intel. He identified all the core members, gave dates for previous hits, shared details of how goods were stored, fenced, and transported. Most importantly, he confirmed Shane Doyle's role as the orchestrator and the location of their final planned job, a luxury car garage in Staffordshire. That was all the task force needed. They moved fast. A tactical raid was set for the night of the planned job. Surveillance teams tailed the crew as they mobilized. Armed police waited outside the target garage. At 3:08 a.m., just as the crew began prying open the service entrance, blue lights exploded through the dark. Within seconds, it was over. The takedown was swift and surgical. At 3:08 a.m., police intercepted the Silent Night crew mid-operation outside the Staffordshire car garage. Within seconds, unmarked vehicles surrounded them. Armed officers shouted commands. The crew froze. No time to run, no chance to destroy evidence. 5 men were arrested on the spot. Shane Doyle, Lee Morrison, Callum Rees, and 2 others acting as drivers and lookouts. All were masked, gloved, and carrying reinforced crowbars, screwdrivers, and jammers. Nearby, inside the van, officers found a duffel bag with false plates, walkie-talkies, and a printed floor plan of the target site. Doyle barely said a word as he was cuffed and taken away. The operation didn't stop there. Simultaneous raids were carried out across Birmingham, Wolverhampton, and Coventry, addresses linked to gang members through Fields intel and mobile tracking. More arrests followed, including 2 men suspected of fencing the stolen goods and a woman who rented the lockup in Tipton under her name. In total, 10 people were arrested over a 48-hour blitz. Police recovered over £600,000 in stolen electronics, 14 stolen vehicle parts, 5 cloned license plates, industrial-grade lockpicking tools, £50,000 in cash, 3 burner phones still active. Back at the station, the interviews began. Shane Doyle refused to answer any questions. His solicitor issued a no-comment strategy from the start. Officers showed him CCTV phone records. The stash house. Still nothing. Morrison cracked first. He admitted to being present during some burglaries, but claimed he was just the driver. He blamed Doyle for organizing everything, calling him the boss and the one with the contacts. Rees followed suit, telling investigators that Doyle picked the targets, planned routes, and handled the stolen goods. It was a classic collapse. No one wanted to go down as the ringleader. And with Fields already cooperating, police didn't need full confessions. They had corroborated details from multiple sources. The Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, moved quickly, approving charges of conspiracy to commit burglary, possession of criminal property, handling stolen goods, participating in the activities of an organized crime group. Each charge carried potential sentences of up to 10 years. Meanwhile, news of the arrests began filtering through the media. 2.6 million Midlands burglary rings smashed by police, read one headline. CCTV crackdown helps bring down Silent Night crew, said another. Business owners who had been hit over the past 18 months finally saw justice catching up. Some were interviewed by local news, praising the police response. Others were simply relieved the nightmare was over. But behind the scenes, Operation Halo wasn't celebrating just yet. D.I. Holloway's team were working overtime, connecting past cases to the suspects, ensuring that every charge would stick. They built timelines, verified alibis, and submitted digital evidence logs, all to prepare for a prosecution that would need to prove not just isolated crimes, but an organized criminal conspiracy spanning nearly 2 years. And when the time came, they were ready. The case would go to court in early 2024. It would be one of the biggest burglary trials the region had seen in over a decade. January 2024, Birmingham Crown Court. In one of the most high-profile burglary trials the Midlands had seen in years, 8 men stood accused of orchestrating a £2.6 million crime spree. The prosecution alleged that the group had acted with military-level precision, targeting dozens of businesses across the West Midlands in a coordinated for-profit campaign of nighttime raids. The lead prosecutor, Victoria Haynes, opened the case with a sharp summary. This was not the work of opportunists. It was an operation, a network, planned, mobile, methodical, and entirely illegal. Sitting in the dock were Shane Doyle, Lee Morrison, Callum Rees, and 5 others. All wore suits. All sat silently, their expressions unreadable. For the next 6 weeks, the court heard from dozens of witnesses, including business owners, forensics experts, cyber analysts, and police officers from Operation Halo. CCTV clips were shown on screens. Phone records were dissected. The movements of the crew were mapped out, job by job. The jury listened as a timeline unfolded. March 2022, a £70,000 raid on a car part importer in Dudley. June 2022, a high-tech break-in at a vape distribution warehouse in Coventry. October 2022, 3 burglaries in one night across Smethwick, Solihull, and Rugby. April 2023, seizure of stolen goods from the Tipton lockup. A digital analyst demonstrated how encrypted messages, even deleted ones, linked the defendants in a clear pattern of planning, communication, and execution. GPS data showed vehicles associated with the group near crime scenes at critical hours. And then came the bombshell Jordan Fields' testimony. Though granted limited immunity, Fields had everything to lose if he lied. He took the stand and described the crew's hierarchy, planning sessions, and the roles each defendant played. His tone was flat, emotionless, as he explained how Doyle picked targets, how Morrison secured equipment, how Rees acted as a scout and entryman. Fields even identified items on display in court: crowbars, jammers, gloves, confirming they were standard kit used on multiple raids. The defense tried to punch holes. They accused Fields of exaggerating, of striking a deal to save himself, but too much of his testimony aligned with the physical evidence. Phone data, surveillance footage, and financial records all matched his claims. When Shane Doyle's solicitor tried to argue he was a scapegoat, the prosecution responded bluntly. If Mr. Doyle is not the leader of this operation, then who rented the lockup? Who moved the stolen goods? Who created the route maps found on Callum Rees's hard drive? It was airtight. After nearly 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned their verdicts. Shane Doyle, guilty on all counts. Lee Morrison, guilty. Callum Rees, guilty. 5 other members, guilty, with varying levels of involvement proven. In March 2024, sentencing was handed down. Shane Doyle received 12 years in prison. Morrison and Rees got 8 and 9 years, respectively. Others received between 3 to 6 years, depending on their roles. Jordan Fields avoided a lengthy sentence but was placed under strict supervision, barred from contact with co-defendants, and forced to relocate. The Silent Night crew was officially over, but the story didn't end in the courtroom. The fall of the Silent Night crew marked a major victory for West Midlands Police and a warning to organised criminals across the UK. Operation Halo was hailed as a model of modern investigative policing. It had combined digital forensics, traditional surveillance, and behavioral profiling to dismantle a crew that, for nearly 2 years, had seemed untouchable.